Happy late July and August. Farmers market time, fresh tomatoes and blueberries, highlight of yesterday's farmers market, and all good stuff. Hope everyone is doing well. Why don't we get started with a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting. Motion put in place by Supervisor Wild, second by Supervisor Simpson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any comments, corrections? No. Resolutions, Wayne?
All right,
We have to.
bunch of housekeeping ones here. The first is a request to increase capital fund by $6,851. That's occupancy tax money that's going in there. The tourism office will be doing a similar one, transferring it to the transfer fund, which then we can put in here. So,
Great. Can I get a motion to get that on the floor, please? Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor Leggett. Any discussion? All those in favor? Go ahead, Lee.
And this is just to balance the sheet here?
This is, so we got grant funding to update the posters in the Lake George Visitor Center. First Wilderness funding, so there's 5 communities that in the county that aren't in the First Wilderness. So we requested occupancy tax funds to cover the redesign of the posters for those 5 communities.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one opposed? Next item.
okay, the next 2 are related. It's to transfer $858.18 from our salary. We have excess salary because we had a junior planner position in there for the year, and she only started in April. So this $858 was part of a grant award for the flood mitigation grant years ago, and there was a required public hearing to be held in New York City, and that was not an eligible grant expense. So this is to finally clear up that negative balance in the capital fund, and then the next resolution is to close it out.
It's one resolution, okay, on this?
Yeah.
Yes. So can we get a resolution to approve both of those items? Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Hogan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Okay, continuing on with that theme, the next resolution request is to close out 4 capital funds. The remaining balance is to return to the general fund, and we've identified the remaining balances, $9 and $11, and 2 of them, and the others are zeros. So,
Great. Can we get a motion? Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor Beatty. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Okay, the last resolution request is to adjust salaries in the 80-22 budget. Again, using surplus salary money in the 80-21 budget. This is to cover the cost of living expenses the committee awarded in February for Sarah. So again, there's just it's going transferring between the accounts.
Great. A motion by Supervisor Leggett, seconded by Supervisor Hogan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. The last sheet, and I'll let either one of you talk about this. These are the grant applications that were submitted by last Friday. Funding request totaled $2.1 million and some change. I don't know, Chris, you want to say anything about the Lake one, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an updated sheet based on what was discussed, I think, in June. The grant applications we applied for, a couple programs. So one of the projects specifically for the Lake George community was project Town of Queensbury. We just couldn't get the letter of support from a property owner to undertake that project, so we had to remove it from the list of projects. Like that, I think that was pretty much what you saw in June.
So that's what's out there. That's what we requested, and if we get it funded, God help us, administration-wise. But anyway.
Great. So the administration of grants can be a challenge at times, I suspect, huh?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Wayne.
That's all we have. You have anything?
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to compliment the planning department for being a resource to a lot of our towns here to be able to get these grants in. It's no small task filling this out, pulling everything together, and getting it submitted on time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Ed, did you have anything, or on
Yes, sir.
in this end of it? Yeah.
Oh, just on this end of the thing, I think that we continue to work and collaborate with Wayne and Patricia and Chris and Sarah in the office on these CFAs and try to provide letters of support, as well as have about 11 p.m. chats with Patricia on some mechanisms on these processes here. But I think it's a great effort, and as Wayne has indicated, county planning is a great resource collaboratively for Warren County, and it's an important element, but they do work beyond 4:30 many nights on these applications when it gets done. That's when it's peace and quiet at that particular time.
Thank you very much, Ed. Privilege of the floor. Anybody would like to make a comment? Yes, Travis.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the appropriate time or whether it's 10 minutes from now, but I would like to discuss that issue that was brought up at Real Property Services last week. We said we discussed the potential purchase of some land over at Stone Quarry Road. An appropriate time to discuss that.
Okay. What is your choice, Ed? Do you want to wait till LDC, or do you
Oh,
want
we can discuss it if you want. I was not aware or received any communication from the committee on that.
Yeah,
discussion.
I know it's a complicated issue, and I don't know if you want to talk about it in this format, Ed, right now, or do you want to wait until LDC?
You're more than happy to hear Travis's comments on that. I know that we have been talking with Mary on that issue and Ryan Moore, but we haven't come to any final conclusion on the issues at this particular time.
Hopefully we won't get too deep into the weeds here, but why don't we give it a run?
Yep. Fine.
Travis, you got the floor.
Okay, thank you. This is an extension of the discussion that went on last week at the Real Property. And at that time, it was suggested that perhaps the town of Queensbury and Queensbury Central School District would have to repay a total of $181,000 and change in taxes. The reason being is that these taxes have been paid by Warren County, and that typically when property is taken and then put up for auction, and then the county gets the proceeds or whatever, if it's maybe Mike can explain this better, but typically, actually there is no typical, because at this point I think they want to take it off the tax rolls. Maybe this would be a good time to have our treasurer.
We've worked on that all last week, and basically that problem has been resolved. There will be no chargebacks to the school or to the town.
That's good news, because that's exactly what I think is said here, so I don't think I'll need to go ahead through that any further. However, I do take exception with the county selling that property at $1,600 an acre when it is worth more than 10 times that amount. My reason for my complaint is that the required public hearings have not been held. If you want to hold those public hearings and hear all of the different problems that I have with this, then I think you can proceed. But the original agreement was for the county to sell 72 acres of land, the entire parcel, which at that time was vacant, had no utilities, no anything really, for what was deemed to be its true value at that time, $115,000, which works out later to about $1,600 an acre, and they were then offered this at $1,600 an acre back in 2001. Well, subsequent to that, not only inflation has taken over, but the state, the county, etc., has put in over $1 million in improvements into that property, in a road, in electricity, gas, etc. And now that property is valued at well in excess of $1 million. So, but yet the agreement that we keep on renewing without public hearing states that they can purchase this at $1,600 an acre. I'd like to remind you that they have in the past purchased a couple of properties at $1,600 an acre, and they've done absolutely nothing with it. There has been no developed land there. There was a parcel sold, however. EDC sold the parcel back in 2007, and the very same day transferred it to Queensbury EDC. They bought it for $18,000 and they sold it for $200,000, netting them over $180,000 gain. This is what I'm afraid could happen in the future. We all, and as a taxpayer in Queensbury, I'm very concerned that we are getting the best value for the land that's there, and that it will be developed is the only reason we're giving it, and it has yet to be developed. I'd love to see the county hold on to that property until such time as someone comes to you with a proposal that does bring jobs to the community, and at that point transfer it at whatever cost you deem appropriate. But to have this transferred and then just sit there for who knows how long, as I said, none of this stuff has been developed, or it's been developed, but none of it's been sold, is not in the best interest of the county or the town of Queensbury. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Travis. Economic development is a mystery to many people around this country. Okay, trying to provide stable, reasonably paying jobs in our community is mysterious. It's not easy. So the efforts sometimes, we do the best we can. But I think it's hard, and so we fight the good fight, and we try to provide good paying jobs to enable our children, our grandchildren to remain in this area and not have to move to New York City and San Francisco in the interim. So again, any other comments anyone would like to make on the issue? Great, thank you. We've done this in record time, even with this issue, and I thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Stroud, are you still? Go ahead.
Yes, I thought we were just...
Okay, go ahead. Okay,
Sure.
go ahead. Yep, sorry. Yep. Trying to cut you off here, Ed.
Good morning. What I wanted to do is recap some economic development activities and other items of interest. Is that Flowmatic has undertaken about a 20,000 square foot expansion. They are involved in the manufacturing of valves. Their major exporter right now is in Central and South America. For many years, those countries were participating with China. They found that over the years the valves were not strong enough and insufficient, so they have turned to American companies again, including. So that is one of their primary exporters to Central and South America is the valves from Flowmatic. Additionally, major cities, New York City, Boston, have extensive purchasing of water valves going on. And again, the key is what's happened over the last couple of years now with the change in our weather patterns in terms of the downpours that is happening, as we all recall and can see now, is the almost instantaneous flooding that is occurring in the need for actually larger storm drainage as well as improved valves in these particular areas as well. So those jobs and the people that work there are spread through Warren and Washington County. We met recently, the consultants did meet with the Facilities Committee, and they are finalizing their plans as outlined to the Facilities Committee in developing some brochures and on-site presence for the promotion of aviation-related business as well as non-aviation business, to take a look at some of the property that can be categorized by FAA as non-aviation, that gives the county more flexibility in the type of construction that could occur around the airport without interfering with current or future aviation needs of the airport in this particular area. Also, the long-awaited announcement of Exit 3 coming a direct line into the speaking of airports, into the Albany County Airport was announced, and actually funds are now being appropriated after this being announced probably 10 or 15 years ago. It is underway. We are continuing to now move into the funding stage for some of the pathway corridor improvements. One of the key ones, they're all really key, but one of the items is the realignment of Sweet and Weeks Road together. Another alignment we're looking at with improvements led by John. I'll have John maybe make a comment in a minute relative to the issue at the Great Escape with Martha's and the back lots of the Great Escape and the conflict in traffic there. John, did you just want to hit on that briefly for a minute?
Yeah, well, we're looking at a very problematic intersection that was identified as part of this corridor study as, significantly in need of remediation, and that is the Round Pond Road Route 9 intersection. If you go back to the early 2000s when the Great Escape did an environmental impact study of its potential growth, it identified a connector road that would sometime come out where Glen Lake Road, and so half of it's been done leading to the parking area. The other half would come out opposite Round Pond Road. So that intersection has been 1.5 times above the normal standard for accident rates there. And as you know, if you've approached Martha's Ice Cream, and I'm sure you have, that using that center lane and conflicting with people that intend to use Round Pond Road is very problematic. As a matter of fact, the wood cutting guy there, Glenn Sherlocker, I think his name is, calls me up constantly to tell me about the accidents and the near accidents that happen there frequently. So to have a signalized intersection would not only be good for traffic, it'd also be good for pedestrians, because the Great Escape has a large number of workers that access the site through the Round Pond Road entrance. And so it means when they get left off by the trolley, they got to cross that. But they're not the only ones. The hotel users, the parkers that use the parking area, the people that want to make Martha's their destination, they're all traveling across Route 9. Well, because they don't have a signalized controlled access as an option. So we worked with the state as part of this whole process, and I want to thank Ed and the EDC for initiating this whole thing. It not only has this intersection, but many other needs have been identified as a result of the study, but I think Ed just wanted me to speak to the Round Pond Road intersection.
And one other one that is while we looked at the entire corridor from 149 all the way down to the Sweet Weeks, one of the other areas that was raised during our public information meetings is the whole Gurney Lane, which gets jammed up. And so, in essence, the state has a rehabilitation of the bridge right there on their list to do. What we want to do is add to that of a widening of Gurney Lane Road coming to Route 9, one additional lane, so there actually can be an effective turning lane that will go right and go south onto Route 9 and into the Great Escape. I think that will eliminate some of that traffic flow headed north on Route 9. It's not an end-all solution, but I think that will help cut back on a portion. And the other concept that will involve considerably more money is to expand and essentially have 2 lanes going north, 2 lanes and 2 lanes south, with a center lane right up by the outlet areas as well. So our next step on this plan is to sit down with the New York State Department of Transportation and reach kind of a priority list and see what funding would be available in the next several years to put into capital projects from our perspective relative to this. Just again, the unemployment rate in the area, and this is the time that our unemployment rate should be low to begin with in Warren County in the Washington County area, and we are at 3.3% at this time. And you look around the state at this point, and our unemployment rate looks pretty good at low, but again, We want to be helpful for those that are in need of jobs, and particularly after the seasonal employment ends, our employment rate, as you know, goes back up in the area, and we have to be looking at that as well. And again, you can see going back to 2002 is the lowest unemployment rate. You know, and with this, in connection with this, and that kind of dovetails into the work that Mr. Swan is doing with the county treasurer, is that the Federal Reserve is meeting tomorrow and Wednesday on the interest rate, which the benchmark is about 2.25 to 2.5% is the benchmark. They are looking potentially to reduce that by 0.25%. The economy is broken down in the manufacturing end of it. There has been a slowdown in the optimism, if you will, and in the purchase of actual goods in the area of research and development, in the area of equipment and machinery purchases, dropping actually down to a low level of less than 1%. Whereas on the retail side of things, the first quarter had an increase of about 1% nationally again. Nationally now, for the second quarter, it bumped up to 4.1%. So you see the diversity in the economy. One is there's a concern on the international trade front that is causing manufacturing to hesitate, whereas the consumer, you know, based on a number of factors, including the tax cuts, some will argue one way or the other on that, but it seems like that is causing an increase in the retail in the area, and hopefully that will translate down into Warren County sales tax as well in doing that. One of the major issues that has been happening, as we've noticed over the years, the increased development along the corridors of the Northway. It used to be able to go from exit 18 all the way down to probably exit 7 before you saw any development, and you saw that development continue to creep up the Northway. And one of the areas that we continue to receive a lot of responses here in Warren and Washington, and particularly Warren and Saratoga County, is the request for warehouse space. We have some warehouse space next to, it's not my mother, otherwise I'd have to answer that. She's preparing to go to Maine to go up to Algonquin there with my sister. So unrelated to all that. The issue is warehousing, and you've seen the proliferation of warehousing with Ace and Target at exit 16 in Milton. We get a number of inquiries, so what we're undertaking to really straighten this out in terms of what we have available for land and building availability is we're doing a tri-county survey in conjunction with the economic development groups in Saratoga and also with Laura Oswald in Washington County. And we're surveying all of the current businesses, manufacturers in the area to see, one, do they have surplus land that would be available to have maybe some kind of joint warehousing, as well as do they have needs for warehousing in the area. And see, one of the things that we're working on is the supply chain, to see some of our larger manufacturing, if there is a need to bring closer to the Northeast any type of supply chain goods that they may need on a regular basis, and they are a large customer of this supply chain, to see if we can then make connections with that. In one particular area, maybe in the medical device industries in that area, particularly with Medline coming into town, which is really kind of the Amazon of the medical world in terms of providing hospital supplies to around the country. They're a $10 billion industry, and secondly, they are now going into the manufacturing component. The acquisition of Angiodynamics is one indication of their movement into the manufacturing end as well. They will be looking at their employment situation in Glens Falls to see if there can be an increase there. Obviously, Angio is going to undertake their expansion in Queensbury for manufacturing, and so it's kind of moving from a warehousing distribution center in Queensbury to manufacturing. Angio will still maintain its presence in the building in Glens Falls next to their second building, which which has now been sold to Medline out of Chicago, which is a privately owned company, about $10 billion, and they're in the Fortune 50. So I think it was a good move by everybody in the area to bring Medline into the area. Also, we are working on two fronts with Web Graphics. One is that we are working with manufacturers in the area to have their own job fairs at Web Graphics, as well as that building is for sale by Web Graphics, which is owned really by Amsterdam Litho, which is owned by a much larger conglomerate, but that building is now for sale, and it's in good shape, and that puts another aspect of that. As I mentioned last meeting, we are working to ensure that the bulk of the 88 people, a few are moving, are going to Amsterdam daily to work at Amsterdam Litho, a few are retiring, so there's probably a net of 75 people that we are working with and asking various industries if they have an interest. And rather than having them come to the industry itself, we're bringing the industries. Web Graphics has been exceedingly cooperative, which is not often the case when companies are closing or selling. They're very tight-knit about it and do not welcome on-site, but this has been helpful to the employees. So we are working to have a number of manufacturers. One has already gone in early July, and we're working on two others to come in at the end of this month. It's coming up by Wednesday in early August to do. Also, we're preparing for the annual zoning planning conference in Lake George at Fort McHenry, and putting together an aggressive schedule of varying items that are planning. The key that we also try to feature for the planning and zoning board members is that this is an eligible continuing education component that you get credit for attending this conference, and John gets credit. He's always there. A number of other supervisors do attend as well. Also, it was an announcement. It was a nice announcement to hear Senator Schumer and Congresswoman Gillibrand announced $500,000. A small drop in the bucket for Lake George, but it was helpful, and I think provides the initiative for hopefully an anticipated announcement out of Albany for some positive news. The phone line is open in Lake George, waiting for the call from Albany relative to that area. We're trying, the city of Glens Falls is trying to catch Queensbury and getting to a conclusion. Glens Falls, Warren Street, BOA is completing its step one with a submittal. The BOA in Queensbury has gone through an exhaustive planning process, and we hope to be able in the next step to work with Queensbury and their engineering firm Chazen to develop some commonality in final reports by both communities as we go forward, as well as support the efforts of Queensbury relative to the redevelopment of Sibugagi in some fashion out there. And of course, Wayne alluded to that. That was a benchmark on Friday at 4 o'clock this year. As far as I know, all of our applicants made the 4 o'clock deadline last year. Unfortunately, we had two applicants miss the deadline, one by about 2 minutes and another by an hour, which is difficult and very frustrating, but that's it. Question or comment?
Thank you, Ed, very much. Just one observation on something you said. It's interesting when you have local manufacturers that seem to have a unique handle on technology, in worldwide technology, that being the valve technology you referenced in terms of Pines Island. But Ames Goldsmith is another manufacturer where both of these organizations fall into the plus column when it comes to the export of technology and hard goods to China. So it means that we have a degree of handle on technology, which I clearly do not understand, but it's refreshing to see that we do have a couple of local people. The Glens Falls Common Council just recently gave Ames Goldsmith a blessing to add additional warehouse space in the city of Glens Falls. So that was a positive for them, and I think for the employment in the city. Any?
And also they have employment in the town of Moreau as well. They have a major plant.
They do. In fact, they have that facility in Moreau. They are incorporating a major solar project that they're working on right now as we speak. So good to see. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed, how's the Interstate I-87 inventory coming?
We're in the 3.5 quarter stage. We will complete that by the end of this year. We're really kind of reviewing it in detail and checking to see if there's been any major zoning changes, so that there's an overlay from our friends at EPA to the local community. So that is really tying into it, really, because of what we were doing there. This warehouse survey of a specific type, came up, and the other thing that we are doing is checking right now the conditions of roads in and around each of the Northway exchanges to see basically kind of a condition of the road, but more importantly, who's controlling those road entities, as that basically companies are looking for anywhere from 1 mile to 2 miles, depending on the conditions of the roads, how far they want to be from the Northway exchange in that area. And if they have to go through any, certainly we're not going to direct something with major truck traffic through a small hamlet area to get in that area. Particularly like in Chester, we're not going to put you through the hamlet.
Thank you very much. Any further comments, observations? Can I get a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry.
Question for Ed with regard to the Northway. Is it through your office where an inventory of the signage at each of the exits in Warren County goes through? Okay.
No, what we are doing is doing basically a land inventory, use inventory, infrastructure, water, sewer, types of utilities, the natural gas cuts off in the Lake George area, what is available in the capacity of the electric area. We have 3 phases up through Route 9, and there will be a major industrial settings with Athens Industrial Park there, that's 3 phases. But what we're looking at is when we get these inquiries in, whether it's warehousing or whether, more importantly, work-related types of employment opportunities, do we have the capacity, and what kind of land do we have off the Northway? Who owns it? Is it potentially available for sale, so that we have something ready for each of the communities and the county and us, so that we then don't have to stop and go through and check for the particular town and see if the town is doing itself by we want to be able to put that up front and see what we can do. Right now, there's a heavy concentration on access off Main Street. Kind of finally discovered this after we're going out in the development space southwest.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps as a follow-up on Gina's question here, it's about signage along the I-87 as you're coming up and what exists off of the and can be applicable, and once you enter into the blue line, there's a difference on what signage is allowed. And if I may ask her a question, are you hearing?
We've had inquiries about when does it get updated as attractions, lodging, restaurants have changed. There's that signage at each of the exits.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if that came through EDC or if it's an I Love New York or a DOT or.
I think it's a combination. Certainly would agree to do that. I think it should start with our tourism department as one of the aspects, and then move into APA, DOT. I think the Chamber of Commerce that are located along the Northway and certainly we participate. But I think it would have to be an item, and certainly just not off of there, but also how do we make sure that this is acknowledged in towns that aren't quite off the Northway. Mr. Molino is not here, but I'm sure there's some as well. And again, that goes down to the visitor center. That's where I heard some nice compliments, but also the fact is the difficulty in trying to put local events onto the, at that Welcome Center. You have to go through a mechanism out of I Love New York with that, and I think that probably should be added to our list, because now I've gone by there, regardless of the hour, there seems to be people stopped in there, and the information for our region is somewhat limited in the type of events. I know there was an event a few weeks ago that the organizers wanted to put on, and they basically said no. So I think that's working together and using the cloud of our tourism folks and the chambers in our area and so forth, and the supervisors. Certainly great, that's a good point.
Great. Any further questions, comments? Can I get a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Leggett, second by Supervisor Wild. We are adjourned. If we can jump right into LDC.
Wow.